What's up, y'all? I'm doing a collab with a friend of mine, and we will be talking about Dark Souls
versus Diablo. We're gonna talk about both series.
What?
Bro. Alright, so we're going to be talking about Dark Souls versus Diablo. I'm going to have Dark Souls 3 gameplay in the background while we're speaking over this.
Yeah.
The reason I would choose, I don't know, I just think that, in my opinion, the Dark Souls 3 gameplay is better, in my opinion, than the Diablo.
Yeah,
I don't have Diablo installed. It's much more beautiful, in my opinion. Although, don't get me wrong, Diablo is a great game.
Yeah.
You can't really, just say that Diablo is a horrible game. It's not.
I like Diablo better than this, but I have tried both series out. I like Diablo better, but... So, let's talk about,
Let's start it off with Diablo.
Okay, let's start off with the first installments.
The first installments, you take it away. You're more a Diablo than I am.
Okay, so basically it's, really bad graphics. But, the bosses were kind of, eh. And so were the units, but if you had, a bunch of... it was magic, and then there was, swords and axes involved. And they played completely different parts. There was poison, lightning, fire, and ice. Yeah. I think that's all of the elements they possess. But there are other bosses, like the Butcher, who had really resistance. And the resistance had, percentages, so it wasn't, like a solid number. It would range between weapons. What about Dark Souls?
Weapons?
Like weapons and,
I mean, it really depends. So if we're gonna go with magic, I think Diablo has a huge upper hand. If you just look at all the spells and stuff, but Dark Souls, don't get me wrong, it has a lot of good things that has it going for it. I think that, in my opinion, you see, I haven't really seen much of Diablo stuff, but I do know that it is definitely more powerful when it comes to magic. Dark Souls, it's a lot, weaker. It has good effects, but if you even try it on Dark Souls bosses, it really doesn't have too much going for it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sure, it does damages. Every boss has its own weakness. That's the thing about, Dark Souls. While Diablo, you're just trying to find the better damage weapon.
Yeah.
And, what has splash damage or not. This game, it's more about trying to find the boss's weakness, while... Diablo, there's not really bosses that have... I haven't really seen ones with a huge weakness effect.
Yeah.
It's mainly just find what does more damage or not.
Yeah, and basically just spam it all.
Yeah, you just spam the shit out of it with all your fucking abilities.
Yeah. For example, in Diablo 2, there was so many creatures that would just do so much elemental damage. For example, Duriel and Andariel, which were bosses... They would do poison, ice, and fire. And it would just screw you up so badly if you didn't know what you were doing. But if you had the right armor, man. And that's if you get to them. There were zombies that were, overpowered. And they were given resistances as well. There were also all sorts of creatures which have reincarnation. Which can basically... the shaman... which basically can revive brethren or other fallen.
Yeah, here's the thing, though, too. Also, here's the thing. Diablo's class system has got to be way better than Dark Souls. Dark Souls, their classes don't really have too much going for them. Sure, they have some good classes. Let's continue. Yeah, well, Dark Souls has, way more shit in class section. Yeah. I think classes in this game, there's really not too much going for it at all. Sure, you have different attributes and stuff, but the classes in Diablo, you have, abilities,
Yeah,
this game,
every character, you get different abilities.
You just get a different weapon and start off with maybe a shit spell. in Diablo you get certain abilities that are meant for that character.
Yeah, you don't get Raise the Dead with a barbarian. That would just be freaking overpowered. Diablo 2 had 7 characters that you can play with, and they were all different. One was a sorcerer.
Oh yeah, I heard the
barbarian.
Necromancer returned to Diablo 3.
Dude, the Necromancer alone can probably whoop most of, in my opinion, most of Dark Souls' enemies, because
Maybe enemies, I don't know about bosses.
bosses, yeah, he was pretty weak, like, health-wise, but the damage on him, he did so much damage when he got his skeleton army and his goblins and minions and all those others. It was more of a magic caster.
Now that we've covered, like, mainly the weapons and classes, let's move on to bosses. Who should we start with first?
Start with Dark Souls.
Dark Souls. Alright, so if we're starting from the first installment, the Asylum Demon has to be the weakest piece of shit in everything. I think anything from Diablo could absolutely shred the Asylum Demon with no real harding, because anyways, the Asylum Demon is just the tutorial boss for the first game, and even in Dark Souls, it literally took like maybe 12 hits to kill him with your like longsword or something. And it took like 3 hits if you come back in New Game Plus with like actual good stuff. That's the thing. But yeah, that's the first installment. The next boss would have to the second boss is the Taurus Demon. There's all over, dude, let me just tell you, there is so many bosses in Dark Souls. In all the franchise, I think there's about 80 bosses. So, I'm gonna try to, like, do my best on ones that would try to put a dent.
Yeah.
Like, more powerful ones. I'm starting off by saying the first few bosses in Dark Souls 1 aren't really that much to talk about. They're pretty garbage. They're nothing to really talk or say anything about. They're just weaklings there to look tough, but they're not really tough at all. But let's start off with some better bosses that I think are actually, somewhat powerful. Let's start off with saying Ornstein and Smough. Ornstein and Smough is probably the first real huge challenge you have in Dark Souls 1, which they are a duo. They're a gank fight.
Yeah.
There's one giant with a damn hammer, and then the other one's a fast dragon slayer with lightning abilities.
Yeah, that would probably take out a lot of Diablo's like minions, but bosses, I don't know, man.
Yeah, the thing about it is, like, their combination is excellent for a Dark Souls type player, but in raw power alone, Smough would be the one to try him, because that hammer...
The hammer would just, like, go
is
through
going
everyone.
Not only that, faggot has a butt slam, and here's the thing, here's the cool thing about that fight, whoever you kill first, the other one absorbs the other, and takes their power.
I think if Smough
absorbs Ornstein, he has the lightning splash. Like, whenever he does that ass slam, I really don't like that move, but it fucking... Like, whenever he combines it with Ornstein, it does a shitload of damage to you, and it's pretty much fucking hard as shit to avoid. Not only that, but I think the raw power of Smough alone is pretty damn good.
I think Smough alone could probably take Dario down. However, Ornstein, I don't know. I really don't know about him.
Ornstein... Honestly, Ornstein, he's a little fast one. He knows, like, what the fuck to do.
And Dario's pretty big and fast. Like, but she's, like, the weakest of them all. So, maybe. But the true challenge is her twin. And Duriel. Duriel is big, strong, and fast. And he does elemental damage. Which is not fun. 4 players have a chance at beating him. They don't even have a guarantee. And first you have to get through all the zombies and reincarnated corpses that are guarding his tomb. Oh, and not only that, you have to find his tomb. If you don't go outside of the freaking universe to find it, then you won't. Then you'll have to go through all 7 of his tombs to find him. And even then, you have to find his staff first, so it's even harder. So unless these Dark Souls characters understand puzzles and shit.
Let's get to the next boss.
Mephisto.
No, like Dark Souls. And
Okay.
then next one, and then you can come back to Diablo. So the next boss in Dark Souls 1 is Artorias the Abyss Walker. In my opinion, like he's one of the DLC bosses, right?
Mm-hmm.
The DLC for Dark Souls 1 was like the most challenging part about it. I'm pretty sure every single boss in that one gave you some sort of a challenge. But Artorias the Abyss Walker and Manus, Father of the Abyss, were 2 really strong opponents. And, so, Manus and Artorias, basically, they fought each other. I think Manus was the one who won that fight. But here's the thing. Artorias, let's get on to his abilities. He basically is one who was told by the Great Lord to vanquish anything abyssal or anything with humans in it. They were supposed to eradicate the abyss. He is that, right? He was supposed to eradicate the abyss, although he failed in his job. He failed in his job, but honestly, he was still powerful in the end. And dude, that boss fight, dude, let me tell you, this dude had spin attacks, front flips. He had like these fucking long range bullshit. Like, it was fucking weird.
So he has magic, right?
Not really magic, but he has power of the abyss inside him because he got consumed by it after he failed. Mm-hmm. But let me tell you one thing. He is one powerful motherfucker. He's one of the 4 Knights of Gwyn. Gwyn is supposed to be a god. He was the first Lord of Cinder. Cinder.
There we go. We're talking
first
about
Lord of
shoes
Cinder.
now.
First Lord of Cinder. And, yeah, he sent this one out to go and take out the Abyss. And, yeah, he failed in his mission and all that. Now, the one who made him fail in this mission was Manus. Manus is basically the first human who kept the Dark Soul a secret. He's known as the Furtive Pygmy. And he fucking broke Artorias' arm, so Artorias had to switch out his, what arm he was good with. So he used to be good with, I believe his left hand, and he held a shield in his right. It was a weird style. Most knights didn't do that. But yeah, he did that, and then he broke that arm, and then he threw away his shield, and then he just had to attack with one arm. He did become weaker, but in his more prime state, when he was still that Wolf Knight of Gwyn, he was very powerful.
One thing I'd like to point out, in most of the bosses in Dark Souls, do you have multiple enemies or just like that one specific or 2 specific enemies that you have to fight?
It's mainly 1 or 2.
In Diablo, it's completely different. Most of the fights are multiple enemies at the same time with the boss coming at you.
Well, in that thing is Diablo's a much easier game. They cut you a lot of slack. Dark Souls, it's supposed to be a lot harder. But,
Hey, get a few succubuses or maybe some magi.
There are some bosses that spawn in enemies with you. Speaking of which, that brings us to our next boss. Nito, the Grave Lord. He's basically death.
Awesome.
He could raise the dead. He raises the dead in his boss fight several times. He has an AoE attack. He was basically the one who led miasma and disease all across the Dark Souls universe. He was that one who brought death. His mindset was, well, if there's life, then let there be death. And then there was also a Lord of Light, and then there was the Soul of Dark. Life, death, light, and dark.
Diablo was the main one who brought death to most villages and spread
Yeah.
terror like a son of a bitch he was.
Yeah, the Grave Lord, he basically raises the dead, he creates disease, he creates death.
Yeah,
He
Diablo
loves
just spams
death.
magic at you, and that magic does so much damage.
There's not really too much to say about Nito, but he was the one who helped deliver the killing blow to the ending the Age of Dragons, or the Age of Grey. So he played a big role in that. And that leads us to your next boss for Diablo.
It would be Baal.
Baal, Jesus Christ.
Baal is
Probably one of the biggest things to give to probably deliver the killing blow to Dark Souls.
oh yeah, dude was very powerful. He had so basically in the lore, in order to stop the three primes, you had to destroy a soul stone.
Yes.
Diablo and Mephisto's were destroyed. Baal had his own stone on him, so you had to manually kill him. And his soul stone was actually
Yeah, and I
lost.
actually know how fucking powerful Baal is, so I know that he could destroy a lot of Dark Souls. The thing is,
his
it's
army
still in a
is
debate,
very
but I
strong.
know the seven lords of hell.
Mm.
They are pretty much, if Dark Souls were to lose, they are what's going to do it.
Oh yeah,
They are what's going to do it, because I know how fucking powerful they are. Not just the regular enemies are pretty fucking shit. We're not going to be talking about those though. We're going to be talking about the bosses. Bosses only.
Oh, and if somehow Dark Souls starts overdoing and overpowering Diablo and kills 6 of the primes, all one has to do is absorb all other 6 dead ones, all other evils, and make him or herself the prime evil. And depending who gets the body, they get a lot of abilities. In Diablo's case, Diablo got them all. If it was Mephisto or even Baal, I think the angels would have fell much faster. Because Mephisto is a smart son of a bitch. He actually was the one who planned everything. From Diablo's death in the first game to people actually building upon the what was it called, the area where you fight all of the monsters, to the angels fall. He planned everything, and this was before it even happened. He planned it all. He planned the rise of the 3. He planned the fall of the 4. He planned everything. He was literally the mastermind the whole time. Everyone else was literally just pawns.
Alright, well, so our next boss I'm going to be talking about is the 4 Kings, and then we're going to move on to, like, Lords of Cinder and the big ones, the big baddies. We're not going to really be talking about too much of DS2, because in all my honesty, Dark Souls 2 wouldn't really put a dent in anything Diablo-wise. So I just want to keep going with DS1 and DS3. The only ones that could really put a big dent into the Diablo franchise. So basically, yeah, we're going to be talking about 4 Kings. Now, so the 4 Kings were basically these kings who promised things to Gwyn, but they all failed, and all of their kingdoms crumbled. All of their kingdoms crumbled. So
Was
they
it because of...
they fell to the abyss, too.
Ah.
So all 4 of them became these abyssal enemies that you had to get the Covenant of Artorias, which is held by Sif, the Great Grey Wolf. You get that so that you can transverse the abyss and kill those 4 kings to get a Lord's soul, to getting one step closer to Gwyn. They all held promises. They all failed. They're, in power-wise, they're decent, but, like, nothing compared to someone like fucking Malthael, Baal, Diablo. Nothing. They have nothing on him. And then that brings me to Gwyn. Now, Gwyn, he, first Lord of Cinder, first one to link the first flame. He created the Age of Fire, which is this age of light, where gods can thrive and humans shall stay in the shadows. Any humans with humanity will be killed, and then they turn into undead, and then they will be shepherded to asylums so that the humanity can feed the bonfires and keep the Age of Fire going. And Gwyn is powerful. I'm not going to say that he's not. He he found out the weakness of the dragons and ended the Age of Grey, ended the Age of the Dragons. The dragons are no more after Gwyn and all these other lords, and their souls just fucking killed everyone, dude. Like, the fucking dragons stood no chance against everyone. The dragons were pretty much garbage. Let's just say that. They're pretty much garbage after Gwyn came. But I'm gonna talk about, so Dark Souls 3, the third installment. They have some decent things, and I'll get into that. Let's start off with, let's see here.
Force Cinders?
You know what? Yeah, sure. Let's start off with the Abyss Watchers. They are the legacy of Artorias. So, the Abyss Watchers are basically the legacy of Artorias. And these guys, basically, they were a legion of undead who sought out to destroy the Abyss, to eradicate it, just like Artorias did, and Artorias failed at doing. And they were supposed to be there to clean up his mess and do what he couldn't. They were a legion of... And if they saw Abyss in any city, they would take their whole legions, thousands of soldiers. Their pointed steel helms became an omen to, if you saw that coming towards your city, you are fucked. Everyone's dying. If they saw the Abyss in your city, they're killing everyone. Every last person. They hate the Abyss, and the thing that killed the Abyss Watchers is that, apparently, so, they fell to the Abyss themselves after, Farron, like, they made their home in this place called Farron Keep. Mm-hmm. Below Farron Keep was this place called the Catacombs of Carthus, which you could pretty much see the Abyss when you go inside the catacombs. And the Abyss, like, crept up into where they were, staying, and, the Abyss Watchers were locked into endless combat, which would basically be their demise. But in their age, they were a sinister omen to as they would kill everyone in their sights. And as to them being Lords of Cinder, one of them became a Lord of Cinder. I don't understand how that happened, or what that happened, but they had great power, especially in numbers. And then we get to the next boss, Aldrich, the Devourer of Gods. So in DS1 they had many gods. Aldrich was this being who was just a regular cleric, and then he ate people until he like bloated. He ate people, and then he could basically dream of you and learn your techniques just by dreaming about you.
Wow. And
he was one who thought about the deep sea. He ate the god of the dark moon, Gwendolyn, and he also ate, in another timeline, he ate Nito, the Grave Lord, and he also dreamt up Priscilla's life hunt ability, and, he dreamt of Priscilla's life hunt ability and stuff, and that's kind of scary to think about it, if he could just learn your techniques just by dreaming about you.
That is pretty scary.
Yeah, that just shows that he has a really good ability in something like that. And he's really adept in magic, especially when it comes to faith, like lightning and powers of the sun, stuff like that. He's mainly in that. He does know sorceries too, because he was a deacon of the deep, which are these groups of people who only used to do religious faith, and then they started learning sorceries, which is supposed to be like forbidden in arts of faith. Now, I'm going to talk about the next one, Yorm the Giant. Now, here's the thing about this dude. in the game he may seem easy, but only because of one thing. You're given a legendary greatsword that is supposed to take down giants and bring them to their knees. If you don't have this greatsword, then he is at least 20 times harder to fight. He is very powerful, and he used to wield a great shield in one hand and a great machete in the other hand. But once his capital fell, he threw down his great shield because he had nothing else to protect, and then he added a left notch to his great machete so that he could two-hand it. And once he became a Lord of Cinder, he had fire abilities and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the thing is, he failed his people, and him becoming a Lord of Cinder is what killed them. Sadly, that's what happened. But yeah, Yorm is a pretty powerful being. I'm not going to say that. He used to crush anyone who would try to, do anything to his people. He tried so hard to prove himself to his people that he was a good ruler. But his people just disliked him.
The thing about Diablo is just like conquer. That's the number one thing about the demons. Just conquer.
There's also a boss in this game called High Lord Volnir. He was a conqueror, a supreme conqueror at that. And he crushed so many kingdoms, and he would take the kings and take their crowns and crush them to dust and form his own crown from that. Basically, he was the supreme conqueror. And so I'm gonna talk about the last two, in my opinion, the last two things I want to touch up on. So I'm going to talk about Manus, and then I'm going to talk about the twin princes Lothric and Lorien. No, I actually have another things. DLC bosses, actually. So after you've got Manus and all of them, you've got fucking... Manus basically was a powerful being, sort of pygmy. Like I was saying later, he was the one who created the Abyss. He was the father of it. Everyone fucking hated Manus, honestly. They wanted anything with humans in it was seen as just the Abyss. It needs to be eradicated. It should not exist. It is going to bring an end to the Age of Fire. Which is basically Dark Souls 3. The fire is fading and everything. The Age of Fire is pretty much fucking done. But yeah, he was a really fucking powerful being, was the one who literally crushed Artorias in his waking, and stuff like that. Now, let's get into the Dark Souls 3 DLC bosses. These guys are really powerful. Don't get me wrong, they are extremely powerful. Midir is pretty much the hardest boss in Dark Souls 3. Midir is the hardest boss. He is this dragon that can breathe lasers and black flame. He, honestly, I've had so much trouble trying to fight this boss, but he could shoot lasers, black flame. He has so much damage. He could crush a lot of things. And I think he has a chance against a lot of things Diablo. Not only him, but Slave Knight Gale, who was just this regular slave knight back in the days when Ren, he was like on the front lines and stuff. He was just a normal slave knight. Nothing better, nothing worse. Like just a normal ass slave knight. But then he went searching for the legendary Dark Soul of Legend, which basically it changes people and it buffs people a lot. After he ate this Dark Soul thing, he became so powerful. On a true counterpart of the Soul of Cinder. He could summon lightning at will. He could summon himself in front of you, teleport. He had a repeater crossbow in one hand, and then he had this chipped up greatsword with the blood of the Dark Soul in the other. He was really fucking strong. And I'll tell you what, he also had like souls. Like he ate so many people, and they were just overflowing out of him. And even his cape did damage, dude. Even his fucking cape hurts you. That's saying something. Even his cape does fucking damage.
What is he, General Grievous?
No, not fucking no Star Wars shit. And, so yeah, I think that's really all I've got to say on the Dark Souls thing, besides, Lorien and the Demon Prince. Let's talk about them. The Demon Prince, very powerful being, probably one of the last of the old demon royalty. He's pretty much the only one left. He's the only one left after this. The last one of demon royalty, just sitting there. Lorien actually defeated him, and is why his sword is scorched in, flame, and cannot be cleansed from this so-called flame. So yeah, Lorien has got to be a big role. And, same with the Demon Prince. They're both really fucking powerful. Now, I think that's what concludes the bosses, in my opinion. But here's the thing. In my opinion...
Hold on, before you say anything else, I just want to say one thing. The most powerful beings in Diablo at any time, the Nephilim. Because they are both angel and demon. They both have their blood. So, they have their powers. So with that, what do you have to say?
Well, in my opinion, I think Diablo does have the advantage in several aspects. In the bosses, the 7 Lords of Hell, they're just too powerful for Dark Souls, in my opinion. Too powerful. So, in my opinion, not only that, but the magic, just the regular mortals, dude. They're much stronger than the enemies in Dark Souls.
Yeah.
Sure, Dark Souls may be a harder game, but that does not mean that, Diablo should be looked over. Diablo is a much more powerful franchise, in my opinion. I think that Diablo 3 has the advantage and would win over Dark Souls over any time.
Yeah.
Unless they make a 4th one. That's not going to happen, because pretty much the story's already been told. They're already moving on to other projects and stuff, so...
Hopefully.
I mean, it'd be cool to get another Dark Souls game, but I know it's probably not happening. And, yeah. This franchise, nothing to get wrong. People always think that Dark Souls is this crazy, crazy hard game. No, if you think it's, the hardest thing ever, you suck at video games. Dark Souls isn't crazy, crazy hard, but it sure is a challenge, and it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a challenge.
Yeah.
But in all honesty, Diablo is a much more superior in lore and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Not lore, but what I mean is, their bosses.
Lore, yeah.
The lore in Dark Souls is a little fucking too deep. If you could say.
What you get in Diablo are just